It was a peaceful night until it wasn't. The streets of Atlanta rested under a low, humid sky, and the city breathed softly. Then one frame disturbed the stillness. A shaky video, grainy faces half seen, an SUV door, laughter that had a familiar appearance. 30 seconds on a phone. In 30 seconds, it went from private to public. It was awakened by a sound that the city was all too familiar with, the ping of the notifications. A timeline hisses softly as it ignites. At first, it was only whispers. They coil up around bar counters and salon chairs. You might be surprised at how fast private murmurs spread. Then the whispers multiplied. Then they became a pulse. They were a roar after that. A group discussion in the community went viral. The initial screen grab was posted by a late-night blogger. The clip took on its own gravitas by dawn. Those that get up, watch drama, and go hunting are the ones who survive. Someone blurred the faces, someone else slowed the footage, and someone else added a beat that made it seem more cinematic. The shapes? A hand on a lower back, an accusatory proximity, a giggle that sounded like permission. The parking lot where it occurred was located by cameras, phones that were linked to each other. The streets leaned into the story like listeners at a pulpit. It was a detonator, not simply a clip. Rumors that had circulated for months finally had proof connected to them. The feeding chewed it up and spat it up. Comments resembled assessments. Individuals took sides in seconds. The initial shockwave was more complex than what was shown on camera. It was about how the camera influenced everyone, entertained, exposed, and entitled. By lunchtime, the city felt different. Smaller, louder, hungrier. It went more swiftly than rumors. By dawn, the video had simultaneously become proof and entertainment. It raced across sites that feed on controversy. Twitter conversations broke out. The smallest gestures were replicated by TikTok loops. The moment was reduced to countless fragments via Instagram stories. Bloggers pushed voracious headlines while producers piled beats in slow time, till the situation seemed prearranged. Memes developed in minutes. Repeated gifs of a smile, sarcastic captions, remix audios that changed a private whisper into a popular tune. The city looked at each frame as if it were a case file. Hashtags hardened into judgments. The rapid rise in popularity of Kirk Jasmine seems to be a warning. Caught again became a term of humiliation. The film was separated into argument sections by radio hosts. Collective conversations produced quick, loud sentences, and functioned as juries. Conclusions were made based on things like angles, laughter, and the way a hand caressed someone's back. Some messages expressed sympathy for Rasheeda. Many made fun of it. A smaller chorus stood watch over Jasmine. As influencers used reaction videos to profit from the chaos, PR professionals struggled to contain the damage. Clips were slowed. Audio is now available. Dramatic subtitles portrayed each loop as evidence. Screenshots became evidence in comment threads. The desire for spectacle became fast and messy. Take, remix, and repost again. Kirk had a ton of drafts and deletions on his phone. By sharing a selfie as if nothing had happened, Jasmine fueled the flames. The feeds decided before the facts. They judged, reposted, and moved on within hours. The morning begins as usual. Everything breaks apart in an instant when Carly storms in like an alarm. The kitchen is full, with curled coffee, steam, and light peeking through the blinds. She doesn't knock. Her speech is hurried, harsh, and too fast to be polite. Confused, Rasheeda looks up as the scenario soon devolves into something worse. Carly extends a phone, her hand shaking. She says, "I wish I was joking," yet her comment lacks humor. Rasheeda's tranquility breaks after viewing the recurring video. The image begins to play. Her face loses color as the frames slow down. She chuckles, and she feels that comfortable touch on her lower back. Silence swallows the room for a heartbeat. Then her chest is filled with blossoming heat. For a moment, she doesn't move. Then, as evidence, the coffee slips out of her hand and runs down her sweatshirt. Her breathing stops. Pixels and memory collide. Now, the betrayal is more than just a rumor. It's a moving image on a screen, a living example of someone else acquiring what was supposed to be kept hidden. Kendra and Carly are like lifelines. Their faces are strong yet gentle at the same time. They are familiar with the script. They've watched this movie. Rasheeda studies herself with a chilly quiet that looks almost deliberate. But rage is patient. At first, she seems to breathe through it deliberately and slowly, as if counting to an unreachable tranquility. Then the hurt opens up, and the silence turns to fury. She slams the phone on the table. The screen breaks as a result of the impact, as if the glass is at last trying to contain what it has already exposed. Her voice turns chilly and clipped. She continues, "How stupid do I look?" Her words are small, yet sharp, like swords. She recalls late-night pledges to change, sincere apologies, and promises. The room tightens. When Carly tries to touch Rasheeda's arm, she recoils as though she's been burnt. Right now, the shame is severe and tastes like iron. Kendra's jaw tightens. Carly's eyes shine with guarded love and anger. Outside, the city is already awake. The sound of phones tinkling sounds like distant thunder. Somewhere, someone has turned this personal injury into a public sport. Rasheeda's hands ball into fists. You won't make fun of her. Painful, angry, and resolute, her face is a stone. She will not beg, she refuses to perform for them. The immediate shock is a collapse into stillness. The second is a climb into a frigid, frightening clarity. Hurt makes a choice at this point. Her mind flickers between faces, and I apologize for being late. She imagined their merciless captions and headlines. Anger settles into a plan. Not right now. Not for them. Friends wait for the time when she might snap, but she has already decided on a different course of action. One that will alter the story to fit her requirements. She inhales again, steadies, and that hold reveals the general shape of her next move. Now that they are storm anchors, Carly and Kendra know when to pull and when to let the tide carry them. Every feeling is entwined with protection and history. Rasheeda is gently reminded of the pattern, past mistakes, promises, and the painful ritual of forgiveness that followed. Their words land like proof in a catalog, which she would rather not peruse. But the pages keep turning. Carly swings between anger and concern. A quick, perceptive judgment that Kirk should have known better, followed by a kinder touch as he saw Rasheeda's lips tighten. Kendra bristles with a fiercer kind of loyalty that smells of long friendship and private oaths. She won't allow Rasheeda's humiliation to become the standard in the city. They discuss small strategic goals out loud because practical things feel like control in chaos. Stay off socials. Avoid making quick judgments. Avoid feeding the vultures food. Anecdotes that remind her she wasn't the only one burnt are used to bookend her agony. That resilience may be worn like armor and has a shape. There are drafts of declarations and quiet threats concerning solicitors. There are louder murmurs about revenge, which only fools talk about, and about what quiet, meticulous power looks like. Anger and affection are mixed together in the atmosphere. It feels like a war room being run by three women who refuse to be surprised again, while Kendra's quiet speaks louder than most motivational speeches. Carly's humor is as sharp as a dagger, occasionally slicing to release the pressure. They use a combination of tactical reasoning and facts to steady Rasheeda while rejecting sympathy and providing solutions. When combined, they transform shock into strategy. And the first real weapon against the spectacle the feeds are producing is that momentum. They openly commit to remain by her, through all of the chaotic headline, to draft a measured message, to consult a lawyer if required, and to be present whenever she decides to speak in public. Their loyalty is both refuge and strategy. A network already leaning toward action, they refuse to let the story determine her behavior. They will not let the story define her. Like a man walking into a crosswalk he had underestimated, Kirk stormed inside the house, slow and deliberate, as if speed could erase the repercussions. He expected soft. He found witnesses. The door closed with a click, and the sound seemed like a verdict. He raised his palms out and murmured the standard, "Babe, let me explain." Words grated thin from repetition. Rasheeda's gaze remained steadfast. Around them, they measured him coldly and objectively. The room was filled with the sounds of the city, distant camera lights, constant alert pinging, and the low electric roar of a timeline that had already made up its mind. He took a step forward and practiced repeating, "I'm sorry." His gestures appeared repetitious and familiar. He tried to use tenderness and touch to bridge the gap. Every attempt was an appeal that she rejected. Carly and Kendra stood like shorelines, unflinching. With caution, Carly folded her arms. A silent shriek of fury escaped Kendra's lips. They could decipher the script of this pattern since they had seen enough of it. Promises, apologies, and the slow return of suffering. As he talked, Kirk's explanations faded. "She came over to me. That wasn't the case. We just had a talk." The proof that had previously been disseminated contradicted the words. A parking lot, an SUV. To generate a cinematic effect, a clip was slowed down and given a musical score. Someone called out a name outside. At the gate, a camera flashed. Now, the private space served as a public theater. Phones rose like shutters. The sound of far-off lenses was a percussion that maintained time with Rasheeda's increasing heartbeat. Negotiation and denial were the main components of his defenses. "I didn't touch her. I swear you know me." Each request sounded more humble. In a room where 1,000 strangers had already passed verdict, like a witness cataloging testimony, She listened, taking note of every word. As she spoke, the house leaned in. "Don't say my name like you care," she said in a monotone voice, unwavering. It landed as if measured on a scale. The words were clear and concise. He fumbled with the obsolete playbook. Promises, tears, ritualized regret, and being away from the commotion expanded. Bloggers offered their opinions. Feeds looped the video. The number of response videos increased. His phone buzzed like a live wire. He glanced, grimaced, and tucked it back into his pocket. With a low voice, Carly took a step forward and muttered something practical that sounded more like a command than a comfort. Kendra watched Kirk as if gathering information for a possible choice. The roles in the living room had been reversed. It was the public square, the bedroom, the courthouse, and the house. Kirk extended his hand again, perhaps in an attempt to console or beg. Rasheeda recoiled as if the touch could burn her. Everyone in the room saw that one recoil as a separate film. There was no need for replays. He attempted to use memory to negotiate, recalling our vows and evenings. But she counted the pledges and found them to be worthless. She described the pattern as precise and cold, rejecting a straightforward solution. The door remained ajar, letting the chorus of the city and paparazzi lenses flickered like distant stars. The house seemed small and focused as voices from outside filled the space. Kirk's posture shrank. His practiced swagger was destroyed by the burden of exposure. Rasheeda gathered herself inside with a measured, not weak, furious serenity. She took note of every bit of evidence and every unsuccessful apology, letting the quiet to speak until it had weight. That silence prepared the audience for the decision that she alone would make public. By the time he left, shoulders low and visage shorn of the practiced charm, the arrival that had promised a peaceful landing had instead begun the unraveling. Every step he took away sounded like the start of the end. And the house that had previously served as a shelter now marked the point of rupture. Rasheeda turned the living area into a place of reckoning, speaking with a controlled calm that made each accusation land like coin. She drew the pattern: empty late evenings pledges, repeated apologies, and specific examples he had presented as evidence of his metamorphosis. Kirk's comments started off as denials before turning into feeble excuses. He sought to distinguish between intent and impact, stating that intimacy did not equate to guilt, but his arguments had no purchase against the tape and the city's chorus. Without dramatization, she listed specifics: dates, confessions, dares, and the slow erosion of faith. For every piece, a thread was taken out of a frayed cloth. His voice faltered. He delivered ceremonial apologies that now seemed cheap, reaching out for sympathy and nostalgia. His gestures had a theatrical appearance that defied authenticity because of the footage. Carly and Kendra were trustworthy witnesses. Carly's empathy mingled with wrath. Kendra's loyalty was immediate and protective. They had the benefit of memory. They'd seen this pattern rewind before. As Rasheeda pushed for accountability, allegations hardened into criticism. "Don't call me babe," she said, as the term had evolved into a meaningless way to express hurt. Her remarks were sharp, clinical, and delivered with strength. Kirk attempted to negotiate his recollection. However, nostalgia was unable to dominate live footage. "Recall our fantastic evenings," he begged and emphasized. "Think of the kids." But in the face of ongoing betrayal, the room ignored these differences. Phones chimed outside. The footage was looped into verdicts by streams. A wince was exacerbated by a neighbor's live stream. Paparazzi lenses blinked at the gate. The private scenario was documented publicly. Rasheeda's accusations turned practical. She compared trust to a ledger with withdrawals but no deposits, or a bank account emptied by misdeeds. She enumerated the specific ways he had lied, missed texts, broken promises, and apologized, making it hard to forgive him on demand. Kirk's defenses narrowed to pleas, "I'm sorry, I swear," and silence when faced with direct questioning. He was unable to determine whether or not he had considered her when he acted, and his silence amounted to condemnation. Carly gritted her teeth. Kendra clenched her fists into a powerful fist. To catalog truth, they made observations. Now, the living room served as both a home and a courtroom. Words were evidence. As she detailed the effects, her tone changed from accusation to clarity. The days of private reconciliations are ended. No more public apologies without accountability. She talked about setting limits, having solicitors on call, and using deliberate stillness as a tactic rather than a sign of surrender. Kirk is no longer as urgent. His eyes were blurred by headlines as he hastily searched through his phone. Outside, commentaries' sound intensified like a deluge. The friends gave each other a look that said they would no longer put up with the trend. Ultimately, Rasheeda declined to utilize performative regret to atone for him. She declined to forgive. bought using empty commitments. Her resolve remained constant, and his defenses eroded as the confrontation drew to an end. The individuals who stood with her left, the chamber ready to safeguard the barrier she had drawn. The home had hosted the unmasking, and the judgment was already being written by the general public. The broadcasts moved quickly, brutally, and surgically, transforming a private moment into a public artifact that anyone felt free to analyze. Screenshots were as common as evidence markers. Every frame was chopped and expanded until the smallest motion transmitted a fresh syntax of accusation. In order to make everyday movement read like dancing, the creators slowed the video, repeated a smile, and added dramatic beats. Editors then inserted judgmental captions and slow-motion comment sections turned become courts and confessional rooms simultaneously, where verdicts were delivered in ice emojis and capital letters. Influencers stitched reactions. Reaction videos multiplied like echoes, each of which turned the story into a show. Suffering was mocked in memes. Ironic sounds, snarky captions, and changed loops made intimate emotion appear theatrical and shameful. Shorter thand has become the norm for hack, depending on whose pocket the computer preferred. Quick labels arranged anger or pity. Radio hosts inserted portions into debate sessions. Pundits parsed body language like expert witnesses. And late-night meals converted the simplest peek into a thesis on character. A few people felt sorry for Rasheeda. Cruelty was traded like money by others. While many enjoyed the spectacle of a marriage on display, Jasmine was shielded by a small defense chorus. PR experts wrote statements in real time. Lawyers examined screenshots for threats. Additionally, opportunists used sponsored heated opinions to profit from the disturbance. Even local DJs used a joke to create an oral hook that went viral for hours. The clip mutated through platforms. TikTok loops made it viral. Twitter threads built the storyline. The arc was condensed into striking shots for Instagram stories. Blogs then pulled everything together into a story that looked inevitable. People thought they were entitled to a place, and positions moved fast. Angles were disputed, frames were frozen and annotated, slow-motion edits showed intention where none may have been. The video was processed as evidence in daily feeds. It was handled like a sport by the commentariat. In that chaos, nuance was a victim. The speed at which reposts and reactions occurred obscured context. Depending on the position, the city either applauded or mocked its own image on a screen. In a matter of hours, the incident had become both entertainment and public record, and much of what would be written about all those involved had already been determined by the dirty, glittering machinery of online culture. Much of what would be stated about everyone involved. Rasheeda decided that the noise, which was loud, acute, and voracious, would fuel her rather than kill her. Hurt came first. Breathing shallowly and feeling both awake and fragile, the body was astonished. She waited out the first wave, refusing to act for the cameras and utilizing her quiet as a kind of control. Friends surrounded like slow-moving fires. After that, she looked inward and tallied the lessons she had gained from each previous violation. These lessons were survival tactics, boundaries, sanctions, and clear expectations that could no longer be compromised, rather than symbols of misery. Instead of erupting into a public collapse, the humiliation took the form of icy clarity. She watched the programs and considered them as a thermometer, measuring heat, not dictating the solution. Anger turned into a strategy. Fury organized itself into a list of practical things to do. She cataloged instead of appealing as she used to. She drafted terms instead of appealing for assurances like she had in the past. It was a small but significant shift. Small, deliberate choices take the place of frantic reactivity. She worked on her non-begging tone of voice. She worked on words that wouldn't be altered to sound feeble. Voice. She worked on words that wouldn't be altered to sound feeble.